Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Von Rudenberg.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino is absent. Deputy Mayor Sims.
Here.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Here.
Mayor LaBrus.
Here.
This meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 et sec. Notice having been published according to law with a copy on file in the city clerk's office and a copy posted on the bulletin board in City Hall.
Thank you. Would everybody please rise for the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, with that, we'll go right to the agenda, please.
This is the Committee of the Whole agenda for Tuesday, February 25th, 2020, 6 p.m. First on the list is the Fairmount Ave, Grand Avenue Resolution, no left turn. This is a reflection and proposal by the police department and the efforts of Leo Battaglia that is working on our school drop-off and pickup areas and the safety of the children there. So there was a signage posted, no left turn. The only issue now is there going to be an additional signage or expansion to include the afternoon session? And that would be
It makes sense if you're doing it in the morning. Why not do it in the afternoon? I mean, I'm sure they undergo the same problems in the afternoon as they do in the morning. So,
Yeah, sometimes they are making left, and the person got it there, people in the close left.
I'm just gonna make one note and I'll move on here. There's no issue with the mayor and council to support that decision.
none here.
Next on the agenda is an update of 39 Broadway ramp installation. This request was made by one of our former residents, Kathy Salvo, to discuss 39 Broadway and how it would be helpful and a safety concern to remove the handicap parking spot and put in a crosswalk. And that has been completed.
Okay.
Third was the Tri-Can snow melter for the DPW. There was interest by the mayor and council for us to look into that. The cost of that is pretty expensive, and quite candidly at this point, I don't know if I really want to own a snow melter right this minute based on the amount of snow that we've gotten, because that may not be our best investment right this minute. Of course, I'll be jinxed for saying that, because next thing we're going to have a 24-foot blizzard and they'll say city manager said we didn't need one. But at this point I think we're going to slow our roll and go through our budget process and see what we can afford to get accomplished in 2020 with obviously the mayor and council's direction and approval. And my last thing on the list is an intro to the ordinance to the vacant and abandoned property. The city,
And what about the,
that was pulled, the police service guidelines, it was tabled
Okay.
for the next, because there's one other component that has to be added by our city attorney, who advised me today and asked that if we'd pull that, and he would have that prepared for the next meeting. My apologies. I forgot you have a copy of what I have. Last is the discussion of the intro of the ordinance for the vacant and abandoned properties. The city has taken a serious look at our vacant properties. We have an employee who's assigned to look at tax exempt, vacant and abandoned properties. And the goal is obviously to make sure, one, they're compliant and paying their taxes. Two, that these properties that are out of kilter need to be restored and make them obviously appropriately looking and meet the criteria of the neighborhoods, because obviously, we have residents that take great pride in their property here, and the last thing I want to do is live next to some mess that's an eyesore and obviously a problem. So, this ordinance is, the owner of any vacant property is defined herein shall, within 60 days of calendar of the building, become vacant property, or within 30 days of the calendar after assuming ownership of the vacant property, whichever is later, or within 10 days of the calendar days of receipt of the notice of the municipality, file a registration statement for the vacant property with the zoning officer. Assistant zoning officer designee assigned by the city manager will administer the ordinance, public officer, utilizing forms provided for the city, such for the proposal. Failure to receive notice from the municipality shall constitute grounds for failure to register to this property. So what we're trying to do is to get these people, one, identified, and two, compliant. And those efforts were done through. Steve, do you have any?
No, I mean, unless you have questions.
No, I mean,
Okay.
need some control.
You know,
So we're progressing and moving forward with this. Obviously, my goal is to get the city and these properties, whether it's one at a time or, a couple at a time, is to get these people back in place, get families and property owners in there to take pride like the rest of the residents of this city and make this, the city that it is. So that's the goal.
and I was just going to comment. I mean, I'm going to say a couple hundred municipalities in New Jersey have these sort of ordinances. So, we've based it upon models in other places, and it seems to have been effective to some extent. It's a difficult challenge, but, any additional tool we can have certainly is useful.
Okay,
And that would complete the city manager's report.
thank you. With that, I need a motion to open to the public. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, none opposed. Anybody who'd like to speak, please come forward. Give your name to the clerk, and you will have 3 minutes.
We can be in closed session.
Richard Zolk in Hackensack, New Jersey. That's a perfect segue into what I want to discuss. You can't just cut and paste these ordinances. It may be 200 or 300 to choose from, but this is a city manager form of government. Right now, you're tacking on sections 44 through 46, if I have that correct, to an existing ordinance. Let me read you part of the existing ordinance. This is 44A as it stands. Public officer, a person designated by the city of Hackensack, designated by the mayor and council of Hackensack. You can't hear my... I want time back. I know the language is in there, anything inconsistent is repealed. That's a hell of a way to start off a new ordinance that the city manager wants. Secondly, again, I've had this sort of discussion because I don't think this gentleman here is power hungry yet. The work product that's generated seems, we went from executive orders. Today, again, this proposed ordinance, some might call it a travesty. Section 54 of the proposed ordinance. The city manager may issue rules and regulations for the administration of the provisions of this ordinance. Such rules and regulations, as approved by the city attorney, that wouldn't get us far, shall be maintained on file by the city clerk and public officer. Well, we don't know who the public officer is going to be. We don't know who's appointing the public officer. And with all due respect to Mr. Ehrenberg, he is not the legislative body. He should not be promulgating regulations. You need to go back to the drawing board and do it right. And you might direct your city attorney, take the trouble to read the 15 pages of the manager form of government. Because he's not really showing a great understanding of it. You need to table what you have on your docket. You should. I know you won't, but you should.
May I? I mean, and obviously, there will be a public hearing on this at second reading, at which time the ability to have further discussion about this is certainly available and warranted. Just so the council understands better, though, this is separate and apart from other abandoned property legislation that is in our city code, in that this is based under our police powers under NJSA Title 40. There are other mechanisms that can be used for dealing with abandoned properties that are based by statute. Those are also in our city code. However, there are issues and concerns with them, and this approach has been, recommended as another way to deal with properties that may be having some issues but are not, technically qualifying as abandoned because it's a higher standard under these statutes. So that's number one. Number two is it is certainly more than permissible to have the city manager, deal with administrative issues and how this ordinance will be put into place. But of course, it has to comply with the direction that the council is given by adoption of the ordinance. So, certainly, how the registration will take place, the format of the form that will be used, all of those things are certainly within the city manager's discretion under this form of government. Just like in any governmental system, when you pass legislation, to fill in the parts, because the city council can't think of everything all at once, and in order to adopt an ordinance, it takes, a month potentially. There is always an administrative official able to issue regulations. But again, it can't be not in compliance with the direction that the council has given by ordinance. So, I don't see any legal issue with it. I don't think the fact this is a city manager form of government should have any issue with respect to that. All it's doing is giving the broadest possible tools for the city to be able to manage this issue. So I don't agree.
When you challenge the court, it's not gonna be the challenge that the city attorney had a bad day. It's gonna be the city council didn't know what it was doing. Mark my words.
Next, please.
Regina De Pasqua. On behalf of Kathy Salvo, I want to thank you for that ramp. But I'm sorry to hear that you've kicked her out of the city. She is still a resident of the city. You said former city resident. She is still a resident. She lives on Lodi Street. She's in Florida at her other house, but she's still a resident. Sorry.
And the house she has in Lodi is?
In Lodi, she's had that house forever. Her address is Lodi Street.
Okay.
Okay, you're kicking her out of the city.
I don't have the ability to kick anybody out of the city.
Okay, but you called her a former resident, and I
Well-
wanted to clarify that for anybody listening. Kathleen Salvo is still a resident. Her license, voter registration, everything is Hackensack.
Okay.
Okay, right, Leo?
No,
Her license is in Hackensack. Okay.
back,
No back and forth, please.
I know where it came from. I know. That's why I called that out.
okay.
I was not able to find the community gardens on the rec page. So, okay, fine. Rather than have any regulations, they're all gone. When I questioned about Hackensack residents only, I was looking for it today. I wasn't able to find the regulations on the rec page. When I searched community gardens, it only went to the environmental commission. But hopefully it will not be limited only to Hackensack residents, although I don't know who else. You just don't want to get in trouble with Green Acres as far as that, because we've been down this road before where tried to limit it, Green Acres to Hackensack only. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Gary Tizano, Fairmount Avenue, Chairman, Hackensack Environmental Commission. On the snow melter issue, it's been discussed. in 1983 in April. Spring was coming on, and all of a sudden, we got 15 or 16-inch blizzard blew in, and the state was paralyzed. And I was working here in Rochelle Park at the time. I couldn't even get to work. So we have to understand that regardless of global warming, there's still that chance for that perfect storm in the winter to blow in. Might not be, you know, throughout the whole winter, as we know, but we could still see that. So that's why it comes down to really investigating if we should be able to get a machine or not to melt the snow. The snow machine would be primarily for the Main Street area, State, Moore, Main Street, okay? Business district, that's where it's beneficial. But to keep the mindset to keep dumping snow and debris into the city parks, wherever they are, Stibe in particular, since we spoke about it, isn't really the way to go any longer. We're trying to take part of that park back in Stibe, that paved area, making it more beneficial and useful to the residents in town. Okay, that's one example. So we've got to come up with a better way. Yes, redevelopment is taking up a lot of the parking areas where maybe it was dumped prior, but we have to find a way. Machines, whether they're new, if it is a new machine, machines with that expense, like any other equipment, comes with training. You usually pay, it's incorporated in the price of the machine. People go and train on it. Then you find out how many people actually have to work on the machine. Like I stated a few meetings ago, Fort Lee uses a machine, and they seem to be quite satisfied with the way it works for them. And I hope that DPW chiefs here in Hackensack could call on municipalities like that to find out how it really operates. So let's keep looking at it as we go forward, because we really want to take the parks back and use them, okay? The other item is talking about vacant properties. Even though it's not vacant property, the trash in town on the vacant properties, as we just mentioned, is horrendous. But the New Jersey Transit line that runs right down the middle of our town is property that's owned and being utilized. If you go down Railroad Avenue, whether you're heading north or south, there's a tremendous amount of trash on the roadbed along the tracks up to each curb. Now, I don't know how much of that curb, behind the curb, the city owns, but the trash is horrendous. I'm retired. I use that as my highway to get through town, to avoid traffic lights from north to south or in reverse. It's not fair to the residents in those neighborhoods along the rail to see that kind of trash. And people are throwing it out there. It's not the people that live there. It's people coming down the block. So I would suggest that we contact New Jersey Transit, have some kind of coordinated effort to pick up that trash. When you don't, a lot of the trash we see around town is in somebody's bushes, in trees, but this is wide open on stone. And there's batteries, there's gallon bottles or whatever.
Yeah, you're talking about Railroad Ave?
Railroad Ave, yes. So if you get a chance, take a ride up and down.
No, I see it all the time.
Take a look. It's
We
bad.
actually had discussion on this once before, and there is a,
I think maybe we should even send letters out to the residents that, look, you're responsible for cleaning up your property, whether the trash came from you or not.
I'd like to see if that's an area we can also put into some of the areas that we clean up
Okay.
citywide
So-
twice a year.
So thanks for letting me speak, thank you.
Yep. Anyone else from the public like to speak? Seeing none, motion to close the public.
Offer.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unopposed? Need a motion to go to closed session?
Offer.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Madam Clerk?
Whereas the mayor and council of the city of Hackensack deem it necessary to discuss certain actions under section 7B7 and 7B8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, which pertains to matters falling within attorney-client privilege, ongoing litigation, and personnel matters concerning the employment of a current or prospective public employee. Whereas the mayor and council of the city of Hackensack is of the opinion that such circumstances may presently exist. And whereas the mayor and council wishes to discuss the following issues: personnel matters, ongoing litigation, matters involving attorney-client privilege, matters involving the purchase, lease, or acquisition of real property, any pending or anticipated litigation or contract negotiations. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council of the city of Hackensack deem it necessary to exclude the public from this discussion. The outcome of the discussion will be disclosed within 90 days or at such time as the interests of the city do not require confidentiality.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Steve?
Handful of matters to speak about tonight. One is a workers' compensation matter involving a gentleman named John Herman. And you speak about the Nunnermacher case. We will be speaking about affordable housing, the ongoing litigation involving COA. I probably will need to brief you on the status of the Underwood Properties case and a new litigation that was recently filed by an entity called Millard Realty.
Okay. That's it. See everybody at 8 o'clock. Good evening, everybody. Madam Clerk?
We need a motion to adjourn the executive session.
Okay, need a motion to adjourn the executive session, please.
Offer.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, none opposed. And a motion to close the committee of the whole? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, none opposed.